Most men in the West could buy a horse with 3 legs, a busted shotgun, or a plot of land so dry even rattlesnakes packed their bags. But Jameson Hale wasn't most men, and the ranch he claimed with those worn bills was as unexpected as the path that led him there. He had ridden into Red Bluff with nothing but a brown gelding named Scout, a wool blanket that smelled of campfire and lonesome nights, and the kind of silence a man carries after burying his past beneath many miles of dust. And when he saw the handwritten sign tacked crooked above the saloon's bulletin board, Ranch Estate for Transfer 50, title in hand, he thought it was either divine intervention or a cruel joke, and maybe he didn't care which, because something in him was tired of drifting. The owner, a whiskered old fellow with one eye that never quite focused, swore the property was real if neglected, a place 30 miles out past the cottonwoods, where the hills rolled into the horizon like the curve of a sleeping giant, and Jameson slapped down the money with the same calm finality most men reserved for drawing pistols. No one in the saloon believed it worth the trouble, but they watched anyway, the way carrion birds study a man who wanders into the desert with no canteen, and Jameson signed the deed in silence, tucked it into his coat, mounted up, and left town without looking back. Not because he had confidence in what waited, but because moving forward hurt less than turning around. The trail to the ranch cut through land that looked as if God himself had grown weary and stopped painting. Just faded grasses and stubborn sagebrush trembling in the breeze, and the only sound was Scout's hooves crunching dirt and the creak of old leather. And though Jameson's mind drifted sometimes to voices he used to know, memories he kept locked behind ribs thick as old barnwood, he focused on the horizon until, by late afternoon, the land dipped and revealed a scattering of weathered buildings, an abandoned bunkhouse, a leaning hayshed, a long fence that hadn't seen repair in a decade, and a main cabin whose cedar boards had grayed like a widow's hair. The ranch didn't look haunted by spirits so much as haunted by time, and the silence greeted him like an old companion. He dismounted, tied Scout to a post with more splinters than bark, and paced toward the cabin, boots thudding against the porch, boards that groaned like they were remembering footsteps from long ago, and the door, though unlocked, clung to the frame as if fearful of being disturbed, then sighed open to reveal dust motes dancing in slanted sunbeams, a stone hearth crumbling at the edges, and a once sturdy table listing to one side like a drunk after payday. And Jameson walked through it all with the quiet reverence of a preacher visiting graves, because even ruin can feel sacred to a man who's had nothing soft to call his own in years. He checked the rooms, found an iron bed frame missing its mattress, a cracked basin, a shelf where a single horseshoe nail hung like it was waiting for something long gone, and once satisfied no squatters or critters larger than mice had claimed the space. He stepped outside to survey the land from the porch, breathing in the wind that smelled faintly of rain despite the dry sky, and for a flicker of a moment he thought maybe, just maybe, $50 had bought him a fragile chance at peace. But that fragile moment shattered when he heard something unexpected. A splash, soft and sure like bodies moving through water not far from where the creek cut its slow path behind the fence line, leading into the pasture, and his brow tightened as instinct took the reins, his hand brushing the revolver on his hip though he didn't yet draw it. Because sound travels honest across empty land, and whatever made it was close. Moving steady as a man tracking deer, he followed the fence toward the creek, boots whispering through the grass that waved high and green along the banks, and when he crested the slight rise that overlooked the narrow watercourse, the scene he found waiting there hit him harder than any bullet ever could. 3 women, young, dark-haired, their features unmistakably Apache, were crouched waist-deep in the slow-moving creek, water slipping around them like a secret, their long black hair clinging to their shoulders and collarbones, their arms crossed over their chests not in seduction but in startled defense, eyes wide and unblinking as deer caught between shadows. And for a moment Jameson wondered if he had gone mad from sun and solitude. But the women were real, every ripple around them proof enough, and they stared at him like his presence was a threat and a mystery in equal measure. He stepped to the outer edge of the fence, not with swagger but intent, lifting his hands away from his holster to show he meant no harm, his voice low and even as he spoke words he hadn't planned, something like "I don't aim to trouble you," though the women offered no reply, only glances at one another that flickered like candlelight between fear and resolve, and he took another breath, slow and careful, as if breathing wrong might spook. them into vanishing like spirits back into the water, and in his mind a single question rose to the surface. What twist of fate brings 3 Apache women to bathe on a ranch left for dead? And why do they look at me like I'm the intruder when I hold the deed in my coat? But before he could shape that question into speech, the eldest looking among them, her face set with pride even in shock, parted her lips as if to answer, when the wind itself seemed to sigh through the grass, and the sun slipped behind a cloud, dimming the world just enough to remind Jameson Hale that no man buys land in the West without inheriting its secrets. And before I take you deeper into this mystery, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next, because the truth waiting in